Tonight is the second WWE pay-per-view in 2 weeks. Payback from the Thunderdome. It's never an ideal thing to have less than a week of build to your next pay-per-view. But enough time has gone by, I guess, since the last time they tried this little experiment out in 1991, that I guess they're ready to try it again and see how it goes. So let's take a look at the rest of this card as it currently stands, and I'll mix in my thoughts on Raw and SmackDown from this week along the way. As of now, there is no Intercontinental Championship defense on this show. They did not have one at SummerSlam either. In fact, the title has not been defended on pay-per-view since WrestleMania. So I'm pretty sure that the Intercontinental title has been silently converted to a television title. That's what it feels like. But if by chance they do add a match, or a rematch at the last minute between Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles, I'm going to go with Hardy to retain. We've got Big E against Sheamus. This was made official on Talking Smack this weekend. This is Big E's first singles match on pay-per-view. 2 weeks ago on SmackDown, Big E rolled up Sheamus on a distraction finish. This week, Sheamus walked out on Miz and Morrison in a 6-man tag. They were facing Big E and Heavy Machinery. And Sheamus decided to take a powder and he walked away. And Big E won the match. He beat The Miz with the big ending. I like that they have kept Big E strong so far. They have not beaten him. I would give him the clean win here too. But this does not seem like WWE's MO. He has already pinned Sheamus once on TV. I think Sheamus steals a win here, and they keep this going for at least one more match. So I'm going to pick Sheamus for the win. Matt Riddle against King Corbin. Like Big E, Matt Riddle gets his very first match, his very first singles match here on pay-per-view. Corbin has offered a king's ransom for anyone who can take out Matt Riddle without actually explaining what that ransom is. Probably a gift card to the fucking Olive Garden. Maybe Virgil will jump Riddle and try to beat him and collect the ransom tonight. They had a short match on Friday night between Riddle and Chad Gable, who was trying to collect the said gift card. The match was so short. I mean, no pun intended, but it was so short. I mean, I don't even know what the point is of doing matches like this. It was so one-sided. I guess in their mind, that's the role that Gable plays, and it was to help get Matt Riddle over, but it made me sad. It made me sad. This did not even last 2 minutes. The idea of a Chad Gable-Matt Riddle match sounds great. And when Gable attacked Riddle all those weeks ago, and it was very weird that Gable would suddenly partner up and buddy up with Corbin, because Corbin tormented this guy and bullied him and mocked him and made fun of him, and I think he may have been the one to give him the name, right? Or maybe he had it before. Maybe it was Sheamus who gave it to him. I don't remember, but the point is, Corbin had made this guy's life a living hell and had mocked him and bullied him for so long, and all of a sudden we saw Gable together with Corbin, but you know what? The guy needs the money. Maybe he's not paid enough. You know, he needs a side hustle. He needs more money. But the idea of heel Gable, maybe even going back to the Chad Gable name, because Corbin started calling him Chad. I'm like, okay, this is good. If he's going to drop the crappy name, he'll have a harder edge to him, and we get to see Chad Gable against Matt Riddle at some point on TV. Hey, sign me up. And I was excited for that. And then we get this fucking 90-second bullshit on Friday night. And again, as I have so many times before, I was left feeling like the fool. I was left feeling like the fool for being led to believe that this would amount to anything more than what we saw on TV on Friday night. Why would anyone even care about Chad Gable after what we've seen over these last few weeks? I mean, think about the last month or so that this guy has had. He jumps Riddle to collect the ransom from the man that spent months bullying him. Then he acted all remorseful on TV. And he was apologetic to Riddle for doing what he did. Then he gets beaten like a scrub because he jumped him again. He was apologetic and remorseful, but he jumped him again, and then he got beaten like a scrub. All with a shitty name that just makes it impossible to take this guy seriously. These people need to pull their heads out of their asses. pull their heads out of their anal cavity and realize what they've got in this guy. Now, maybe he's not going to be the world champion one day, but so what? He's a world-class athlete. He has proven, as he did in the King of the Ring tournament, that he can get the fans invested in him as a babyface. He won those people over. Before the King of the Ring, he wasn't being featured on TV at all. Most people that watch WWE wouldn't be able to pick this fucking guy out of a lineup. But in that one tournament on TV, which I thought he and Corbin both shined in that tournament, by the end of it, at the end of every match that he had in the first, second, third round, the people were into it, man. He got the people. He won them over. That's not an easy thing. Not just anybody can go in the ring and do that. He has that quality about him. Great. Use that. But they don't. They don't. In fact, they just turn him heel. And they still fuck him over. It's an insult. The way they have flip-flopped on his character, the inconsistency, it just shows a lack of care. It shows a lack of care on their part. They truly don't give a shit about Chad Gable. He's a body for them to use where necessary on TV. He is the ultimate utility player, and that is it. And what I'm saying is that he's better than that. He's more useful than that. That got me so pissed when I saw that on Friday night. I thought we were going to get more than what we got, and then reality set in, and it made me angry. But Riddle wins this. Riddle wins this because the money is in Riddle, moving on up the card as a top babyface on the brand, not giving Corbin the heel a cheap win that's only going to prolong this horrible feud. So Riddle wins. Apollo Crews defends the United States Championship against Bobby Lashley. This should have been the match at SummerSlam. Monday night, Mark Henry, they brought him in to officiate an arm wrestling contest between Crews and Lashley. Crews stomped on Lashley's foot. He slammed his hand down to win the arm wrestling contest. This was a dumb way to promote their United States Championship match here on this pay-per-view. Later that night, Lashley went to Raw Underground. He returned. The Hurt Business returned to Raw Underground. Lashley was going to blow off some steam, so he beat up a whole bunch of people. He beat up Dolph Ziggler. He beat up Cedric Alexander. He beat up the Viking Raiders. If he doesn't win the championship tonight, then I don't know what we're even doing here. He already failed to win the WWE title. He had a very good match with Drew McIntyre, but he failed. If he can't win the US title, then the only thing left is the 24/7 title. And at that point, you may as well just throw your hands up in the air and give up. You have lost all... What is the sign on the door say in the Firefly Funhouse? Abandon ye or something like that? Abandon all hope? Yeah, abandon all hope. If this guy can't win the United States Championship after not being able to win the WWE title, doesn't do the Hurt Business any favors. I had predicted before that Apollo would beat MVP at SummerSlam, and a week later at Payback, they'd probably make the match and put him up against Lashley. And that's what they're doing here, and I'm going to stick to my prediction. Lashley becomes the new United States Champion. Sasha Banks and Bayley defend the women's tag team titles against Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Not the team I expected to be challenging for the championships. We had Bayley keeping her championship at SummerSlam with help from Sasha Banks, but she was not there for Sasha when she needed her in her match, and she lost the Raw Women's title to Asuka, who has no match on the show tonight. I guess she deserves a night off. She had 3 championship matches in 24 hours, Sunday and Monday, so they're giving her the night off. There was a distraction involving Bayley and Shayna Baszler outside the ring on Monday night during Sasha's Lumberjack match, the Lumberjack rematch with Asuka. She ended up losing again. And then on Friday night, Bayley apologized to Sasha. But she apologized for allowing her best friend to even take a match with Asuka, she said, knowing that every time Sasha wins a title, she cannot hold on to it. And that comment did not sit well with Sasha Banks. Even though no lies were detected in what Bayley said, she was speaking 100% truth on Friday night. But Sasha did not like that. So the split is coming. We can all see it coming. We've seen this thing coming for a year. It's the slowest moving glacier I've ever seen in my life. Not that I mind telling a long story. I'm just saying this has been predictable from the start. The only question is, when does the split happen? And now it really feels like we're just about there. Right? There's been a lot of starts and stops and teases, but now it really feels like we finally are about to hit that wall. Probably tonight. Something's got to give. As for how and why Baszler and Jax ended up as a tag team when they were feuding, it's what WWE does. Reluctant tag team partners. We've seen it over the years so many times I've lost count. On Monday, Baszler compared Jax to Haystacks Calhoun, which is a reference that maybe 2% of their audience probably got. Nia Jax said that Shayna looked like an Addams Family reject. Who writes this shit? I've heard better dialogue from my friend's infant. And all he does is mutter little gibberish sounds and slobber on himself. So Nia dragged Shayna out of the ring. Shayna had a match on Monday night with Bayley. She dragged her out of the ring. They started fighting. Until they both looked over and they both noticed that Sasha and Bayley were laughing. And so in that moment, they decided, I guess, suddenly to join forces together and go after them. And thus a new team was born. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And on Friday night, we got a pre-tape promo on the Titantron from Shayna and Nia, where they were telling Sasha and Bayley that they were coming for them. They're coming for the tag team titles. But the whole time, Shayna and Nia are just talking about how much they hate each other and how much they can't stand each other. I mean, Shayna Baszler had the line of the night. She looked over at Nia Jax and said she thinks Nia Jax sucks. That sums it up pretty well right there. I have nothing to add to that. But I don't see how Sasha and Bayley walk out of Payback with those belts. If you saw the look on the face of Sasha Banks at the end of that segment on Friday night, this has title change written all over it. So I think the belts go to Shayna and Nia, and they become the new odd couple tag team. Rey Mysterio and his son Dominic against Seth Rollins and Murphy in a rematch from Monday Night Raw. That match was interrupted after about 10 minutes by Retribution. Rollins and Murphy bailed. They were watching from the stage as Retribution beat down on Rey and beat down on Dominic. And no, this does not mean, as some people I saw were asking, does this mean Seth Rollins is the leader of Retribution? No, it does not. Seth Rollins is a heel. What it means is that he is a heel who would rather stand back and watch the babyfaces get the shit kicked out of him. That's all that it is. Dominic made his in-ring debut at SummerSlam and looked good. I thought he and Seth had the second best match of the night at SummerSlam, right behind Asuka and Sasha Banks. I thought they told a great story in the match as well, with all the family drama. But let's be honest here. It's been a rough few months for the Mysterio family. First, Rey Mysterio has his eyeball forced into the edge of the ring steps. Then at Extreme Rules, he had a gumball popped out of his eye socket. Then his son was just brutalized on TV by about 35 kendo stick shots. And at SummerSlam, poor Rey got handcuffed to the ring ropes and was forced to watch his son get his head stomped in by Seth Rollins. I think it's about time the babyfaces got some revenge here, even if it is short-lived. Because this feud is going to continue. At least through Monday night. We now know this feud is going to continue because the match has already been announced for Raw this Monday night. It is going to be Rey Mysterio one-on-one with Seth Rollins. I think they desperately need a win here, so I am picking Rey and Dominic for the win, with Murphy taking the fall for the heels, and probably Dominic being the one to get the winning fall, too. But Murphy will be the one on his back, looking up at the lights, and that saves Seth Rollins to come back the next night and try to fix Murphy's mistake and go one-on-one with Rey Mysterio. Randy Orton against Keith Lee. On Raw, Randy Orton attacked Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre is not on this show tonight. I'm going to tell you why. So Randy Orton attacks McIntyre. This is the very beginning of the show. McIntyre had cut a promo. He finished his promo. He was on stage. He got attacked. They brawl back to the gorilla position. And Randy Orton gave him not one, but 2 punt kicks. Both kicks missed by a mile. Now, obviously, I don't want Randy Orton to legitimately go around kicking people in the skull. But he kicked the wall both times, and they replayed them too, which made it even worse. They replayed them. We saw it with our own eyes the first time, but then they replayed them. They never came close. It looked bad. But McIntyre staggered off on his own power. I don't want help. I don't need help. I'm fine. Cut to later in the show. Randy Orton is in the ring. He's doing a promo. All of a sudden, he gets interrupted by the familiar opening of Keith Lee's entrance music. Oh, bask in his glory, for he is limitless. Right? We all know the opening chords of that song, sung by Keith Lee himself. Bask in his glory, for he is limitless. Except for his theme music, which was limited to only that opening part. It then went into some generic riff, like the kind of music they give to guys who wrestle dark matches before the show goes on the air. Night 1. Night fucking 1. And they just could not help themselves. And I've seen explanations from people saying, CFOs, they used to do the music for the company and now they don't work with WWE anymore. But it has something to do with that, and it's a rights issue or some such thing. It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. Keith Lee walked out to his own music on Saturday like he did every other week on NXT. On USA Network, the same fucking network that airs Monday Night Raw. The only difference between the two shows is one is an hour longer than the other. One is on a Monday, the other is on a Wednesday. Keith Lee has been using this music now since he debuted in NXT. He used it on Saturday when he came out for his takeover match against Karrion Kross, which he lost. You mean to tell me that they couldn't use the same music on Monday? When Keith Lee would walk out every other Wednesday on that same television network. Bullshit. If it was good enough on Saturday, then it's good enough on Monday. Somebody had to make that call. And I guarantee you, it wasn't Keith Lee. He didn't sound too thrilled about it either. Somebody asked him about it on Twitter. His response was, "Music is out of my hands. Period. Leave it be. I will sort it out later." I hope he does. I hope he does. It would be great if it was sorted out by tonight. But I hope he does. Because in every way that you could screw up a man's debut, they screwed it up on Monday night. They changing the music was just one part of it. Changing the music was bad enough. But they put him in the ring with Randy Orton. If you knew that you were going to do this match on Sunday on pay-per-view with these two, you don't put them in the ring together for a match 6 days before and do a fucking disqualification finish. Which is the other thing. He lost. He lost in his debut match on Monday Night Raw. Now, it wasn't a clean loss. He didn't get pinned. He didn't tap out. It was a DQ. Drew McIntyre interfered. He went after Randy Orton. The bell rang. Keith Lee was disqualified. But Keith Lee lost the match, and even worse was what he was wearing. You know, when Killian Dane was called down to the main roster with the rest of Sanity, which was the end of their career as a group. I mean, Nikki Cross really was the only success story out of that whole group. But when Killian Dane debuted, he changed his look from what it was in NXT. And I don't think he was wearing a shirt either in NXT, kind of like the Keith Lee thing, which I'll get to. But when he came to TV, he started wearing a singlet on TV, which just kind of made him look very generic. It was weird. It was one of those things where the guy has an act, he has a look, he has music, all these things that you work so hard when you're in NXT to just hit on, right? You're waiting for a formula that works, a character that works, to just be called up to the main roster and be told, you got to change this, you got to drop this, you got to do this, you got to do that. Well, why'd you call me up in the first place if you're just going to change everything about me? But I remember that. The reason I bring that up is because Killian Dane later on commented and said that it was his idea. That's what he said. Maybe it really wasn't, but he claimed it was. He said it was my idea. I was just looking to do something a little bit different, and it was my idea. There is at least a small chance that this was Keith Lee's idea. But again, from Saturday to Monday, I don't think he decided, you know what I need? You know what I need that I was missing in NXT? A shirt. No, what this reeks of is the guy is too fat to be in the ring without a shirt on. You know, for Otis, I guess it works because he plays it up for laughs. Even Tucker wears a shirt. Otis, no shirt, because Otis is all laughs and he does the worm and all the weird, or the caterpillar or whatever the fuck it is. He does all the weird shit. He's the funny guy. Okay, so for him it works. But for Keith Lee, oh, you know, he's fat, you see, and so we need to cover him up. And those shorts. Don't even get me started on this. Now, he obviously knew that this was coming because he had time to get new gear made. I mean, if you look at those shorts, it had like a logo on it. It said "Bask in His Glory" on the side. I mean, you don't just snap your fingers and then poof, you know, the shorts are made. So there had to be some like heads up on this, that this was coming, and he had gear made, and he put this stuff on, and he's wearing it in the ring on Monday night, and I couldn't believe my eyes. What have they done to Keith Lee? They took his music away. They threw a shirt on him. They put him in a dress. And they beat him. All in night one. If you can make a checklist of all the things not to do, they checked every single one of those boxes. They did the exact opposite of what they should have done. Macho Dadness on Twitter, if you're listening, my God, you're right. You're right. He looked like he got lost on his way to cheerleading practice. He looked like the world's largest cheerleader. You know, it's like, give me an F, give me a U, give me a C, give me a K, give me an E, give me a D. What does it spell? Fucked. On night one. Now tonight is night two. They can make people forget all about night one by giving him his music back, letting him wear his own damn gear, and having Randy Orton decisively put him over. Maybe the most decorated champion in the history of NXT. The only man to hold the NXT and the NXT North American Championship together simultaneously. The only person to ever do that. Nobody else has ever done that before and may never do it again. Keith Lee has that all to himself. Keith Lee should beat Randy Orton tonight. I understand that Randy Orton is being set up for a rematch with Drew McIntyre. He's the next in line for a championship match, even though he got beat at SummerSlam. But obviously he's going to get the next shot. But Keith Lee should go over tonight. You want to make a new star? Winning is the only way to go. And if Randy Orton goes on to win the WWE title, let's say, which I don't think he will, but let's say he does. Let's say Randy Orton goes on to win the WWE title. What you've now done is you've now lined up his first challenger because Keith Lee beat him on TV a few weeks ago. And even if he doesn't win the championship, you've still set up the next challenger with a Keith Lee win. They need to make this right. I'm picking Keith Lee to win. Even John Cena put over Kevin Owens cleanly in his first match when he came up to the main roster. They did that pay-per-view match. It might have been Money in the Bank, actually. Was it Money in the Bank or Elimination Chamber? One of those shows. And Kevin Owens got a big win. And that was a huge deal at that time. You know, one thing working against this is the fact that Randy Orton lost at SummerSlam. So for him to lose back-to-back, literally back-to-back weeks, pay-per-view matches, and still get the next WWE Championship match, it's not an ideal situation. But he punted Drew McIntyre in the skull a third time on Monday night. This was after Drew interfered in the Lee Orton match. Drew was in the back in the hallway, and Orton attacked him again, and he punted him for the third time in the skull. And then he was in the trainer's room, and they talked about it like he might have a possible skull fracture. Drew is not going to let this slide. Orton's going to get the match no matter what, win or lose. He's already been set up for one more match with Drew because he almost killed the guy. So Keith Lee has to go over here. He cannot lose his first 2 matches on the main roster. That is insane. Fix this. You dropped the ball on Monday night. I'm not declaring all doom and gloom and Keith Lee is buried and dead. Dead and buried. I think Keith Lee in the end is going to be okay. But they say you only make, you have one chance to make a great first impression. And if you're somebody who isn't as familiar with Keith Lee, you don't watch NXT, maybe you remember him from the Royal Rumble and, he had that moment in the ring with Brock Lesnar. But let's say you're not really familiar with the guy. Can you imagine somebody who doesn't know of Keith Lee and that's their first impression of him from Monday night? How awful that is? Fix this. Make this right and fix the mess that you made. And then Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman and The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, no holds barred for the Universal Championship, I guess, as opposed to a no holds barred triple threat match where, disqualifications count? It's kind of redundant, right? What, isn't a triple threat match no holds barred anyway? It's no DQ by default. But I guess they want to make it sound cooler. I already explained why I think Roman Reigns is winning. I think Roman Reigns is winning the Universal title. Join me live on YouTube immediately after Payback tonight for a full recap of the pay-per-view. You will not have to wait until next Sunday to find out my thoughts on this show. So join me live.